Hello there and welcome to the Bicycle Diaries. So here we are, it's week 2 of my training plan and I still have quite a long way to go until my big cycling event in late September, early October. So at the moment that's still about 10 months away. I'm not really sure what form that will take at the moment, but yeah, I'm sure it's going to be something pretty epic over several days. Short-term goals wise, I'm still trying to aim for mid-March and being able to ride 100 kilometers, and so far I think I'm kind of on track to do that. Now, if you were watching last week's vlog, you'll know that my first task is to try and get back some of the fitness that I lost due to the festive food and drink over the Christmas period. And for sake of convenience, let's just call this base miles. Now, base miles is a slightly misleading term because yes, it can refer to actual kilometers ridden, so in this case approximately 1500 kilometers, but it can also refer to seat time, so basically the time that I'm going to spend sitting in the saddle riding the bike irrespective of distance. So in this instance that's going to be about 60 hours of cycling. So the grand totals so far, now bear in mind this is only the beginning of week 2, are 50 kilometers actually ridden on the bike, so 30 kilometers of that was on the road and 20 kilometers was riding the Zwift New York City course. I've ridden about 2.5 hours of seat time, and just for fun I've climbed 256 meters. So my strategy for the rest of this week is to just continue chipping away at those numbers by going out and riding 3, perhaps 4 rides in lower gears so that my cadence is around 90 revs per minute and my heart rate is between 70 and 80% of my maximum. And then that way, when I've completed the 1500 kilometers and the 60 hours of seat time, hopefully I've got my fitness base. As you can imagine, the weather this time of year is not going to be playing ball. Right at this precise moment in time, it's blowing an absolute hoolie out there. So we've got torrential rain and incredibly strong winds. In fact, I think it's the tail end of a hurricane that's been moving across the Atlantic for the past few days. But with any luck, it will move on and we'll return to that drier, more settled weather in a few days. Now obviously that's going to have a massive impact on how often I can get out and do a proper road ride. And yes, of course, going out on the road for 30 kilometers at an hour and a half at a time is really going to chip away at those numbers. But if the worst comes to the worst and it's too wet and it's too windy for me to get out, I will just have to settle for 3 or 4 Zwift sessions where I'm only cycling for 45 minutes at a time and maybe doing 25 kilometers. Anything is going to be better than nothing. And as it happens, worst did actually come to worst. So the rain hasn't stopped really. I don't know if you can see it, but it's raining right now. And consequently, over the last couple of rides, I've had to go into the garage and do a Zwift session on the turbo trainer. Now, even though they have been on the turbo, I've tried to apply the same kind of rules on the turbo as I would have done out on the road, namely riding lower gears, trying to do about 90 revs per minute and keeping my heart rate between 70 and 80% of my maximum. To help me on that, it's actually slightly easy because I use an app called Polar Beat, and the sensors that I use are both Bluetooth and ANT+. So I send the ANT+ signal to the laptop and then that sends the cadence and the heart rate data to Zwift, and then the heart rate data goes via Bluetooth to the Polar Beat app, and I can switch that to the percentage of my heart rate and it tracks it quite nicely. I'm also trying to stick to some sort of schedule, so going out 3 or 4 times a week, although not 3 or 4 consecutive days. Ideally I'd go out every other day, and the rationale behind this is to build in a little bit of recovery time. As I'm always saying, the last ride that you do is only as good as your recovery from it. Now, although the weather is bad at the moment, the good news is that the forecast for the weekend is looking pretty good. So I might be able to do my final ride of the week actually out on the road. The forecast is for dry, sunny conditions, but it will be cold. But if I wrap up warm enough, I should be fine.
And true to its word, the weather forecast is perfect for cycling. Well, here we are on probably my first and only proper road ride of this week. I'm on the Buns, Bent and Hoe course again, and that's not actually a bad idea really, because when I went out on it last week, I found it quite difficult. I've had a couple of sessions on Zwift, and today will be a good test to see if I've got any fitness back. The weather today is pretty cold. It's only about 1 degree Celsius, but as you can see, it is quite sunny. But even so, I've had to wrap up quite warm today. Got a long sleeve jersey on. Underneath that, I've got a short sleeve jersey, an undervest, leg warmers, and even overshoes on. So hopefully I'll be nice and warm. Once again, I find myself at the very top of Grenville Hill, and once more I have to say I found it quite hard. I don't think it was any easier today than it was when I rode up this time last week. I know Hard is a bit of a vague kind of term, so if I can put some numbers on it, basically Grenville Hill from the bottom of the turn at Buns Lane there to where I am now is about 5 kilometres, and the gradient averages between 3 and 6%, and normally I can maintain a 90 cadence and keep my heart rate sort of between the 70 and 80%, but today I was really struggling. I couldn't maintain the 90%, and I could see my heart rate was getting up towards about 80% quite quickly, and I was having to ease off so that I could just catch my breath a bit and then push on a bit more. But I suppose this early on in the year, that's only to be expected, particularly after the excesses of Christmas and all the weight that I've put on. It's just a question of getting back onto it, not worrying too much, enjoying the ride, and just trying to get a bit of fitness back. Just on the home straight now, and I don't mind admitting that I found that last climb up to the Baton Ball at Broad Halfpenny Down quite challenging. I was in my lowest gear, my cadence was down to around 70, I literally couldn't pedal any faster, the climb was only 5% and my heart rate was up at 80%. Now back in the summer, admittedly that was on my faster trek, I was able to go up there with a heart rate still at about 80%, but I was pedaling away at 90 revs per minute, so there's one hell of a difference in fitness.
I suppose I shouldn't be too disappointed. After all, it is only the end of week 2 of this current training plan. But then, you know, we are only human, and us cyclists kind of expect quite a lot from ourselves. We kind of think that we can hold on to previous fitness a lot longer than we can, and it is quite a bit of a shock when we find out that we're not quite as fit as we first thought we were. That said, I've done 3 rides this week, so 2 of those were Zwift sessions in the garage and 1 actually out on the road, and they totaled 68 kilometers with a total of 3 hours of seat time, and I climbed a grand total of 265 meters. At the end of that road ride, I felt relatively okay, but while I was actually doing it, I could feel that I didn't quite have the strength in my legs, nor did I have the required fitness in my cardiovascular system. But again, these are things that I'm actually working on to improve right now. If you want an empirical measurement of how well I did this week compared to last week I rode the route in 1 hour 33 minutes, and this week I completed it in 1 hour 31 minutes. And although on paper that's an improvement of 2 minutes, I don't think it means a whole great deal, because the only thing that was different was the weather, and that was actually very, very different. It was blowing an absolute hoolie last week, whereas this week it was fairly calm. And again, trying to be super objective, let's go over to Strava and have a look at the numbers on my fitness score. You can see that when I completed the ride last Sunday, my fitness score was 30, and when I completed it this Saturday, it was down to 28. So there's a decrease of 2 fitness points, but again, I'm not holding too much sort of faith in that, because it is such early days at the moment. So there we go, that's how the fitness has been going this week. If you'd like to support the channel, I'd really appreciate it if you could subscribe and share. Or alternatively, I do have a Patreon site, and if you'd like to contribute to that, the details are in the description below. Thanks for watching.